In this video, I'm going to go over some Webflow basics that will allow you to go ahead and build your very first website right after this video. And now this is definitely a beginner video, so if you already know Webflow, then go ahead, you can skip this one. But for all the beginners out there, this is a very powerful video that will help you to start your progress in no code and also design. So let's get started right over here. On the left side, we have got the element panel, and which allows you to add any element. Now it splits up to into different sections. So we got the layouts and the basic typography, CMS, media, forms, and then also components. Now the most important ones are definitely the layout ones, the section, the container, grid, and columns. Now I don't really use columns or a container, but I definitely use a div blocks and buttons. Now section will allow you to separate the most important pieces of your information. So you have got your feature section, and then you have got your contact right over here, and you want to be able to separate tools by sections. Then we have got layout. I don't really recommend you any of these layouts, just because they are quite clunky and they don't really work too well. So then we have got symbols. We have got the navigator, which is essentially your layer panel. It allows you to see everything from the top down, so you can really see what's going on in your project. Then we have got your pages. So if you build a home page, then you also want to build an about page. So also might want to build a terms page, a checkout page, this or this. So you will be able to see everything right here. Then we have got CMSs. We have got a e-store or a e-commerce store, and then also your image panel or your assets panel. Now for this video, we are not gonna go over CMS, e-store, e-commerce store, or crazy interactions. We are just gonna do the most basic stuff that will allow you to get started right away. Okay, so let's get out of these asset panels. Let's go overhead to the next side. On the right side, we have got the designer. Now this will allow you essentially customize all the elements that we just talked about: the divs, the containers, the sections, the typography, the images. That will allow you to control everything, and this is what gives you full control. Now the most important parts here are the size and the spacing. And then if you are using typography, then obviously typography, but gradients, borders, and effects are not really important for you as a beginner. Then we have got the settings of an element. If it does have any, we have got the style manager. So as you add styles as in your CSS, you will start to see them here. And then you have got more advanced interactions, which we are not going to go over in this video. So let's get started. So the next thing I want to do is actually build something, so you guys can actually see how we can do this in real life, in real time. So let's get started. So the first thing we are going to do here is go ahead and click Command K, which will pop up a search function which allows you to search for elements. So the first thing we are going to do here is add in a section, and we can just type in, and then we are going to click inside of the section and go ahead and type in. Now watch out here, because there is a sticky nav, then nav bar. Don't use a sticky navs, use the nav bar. So once that there, we are going to go ahead and click on the nav bar, go ahead into the background and reduce the transparency. That allows us to have a transparent background with the whatever color we decide to add to the section as well. Now one really fast way to move around the Webflow is to actually click on the component and move around its parent element. So this will allow you to jump to the section without having to go into the layer panel, and then clicking on the section, it's almost like a shortcut to that parent element if you know where it is. So the next thing we are going to want to do is to go ahead to the section that we just added and add in a div block. Now we want to give some dimension to the section, so we can add a class to it and call it section number 1. Give it a width of 100 and give it height of something like 800 pixels. Now we can see that the action section has expanded, but the div is still here on top. So what we want to do here in the div is go ahead and expand this to be 100 as well, and then we can add another div block inside. So this div block we will add in is our sort of container for all the components that we add within. So we are going to want to be able to move this div block inside of our actual div block. So we want to do that using the layout. So in the layout here we have got some options, but the most important one is definitely the flex layout. If you don't know what the flex layout is, it's essentially allows you to align things whether it's center, vertical, left, right, up, down. It's allow you to move things within a container or within a sections, dips, whatever it is. Let's go ahead and align it to the center both ways, and now we have this div block here. Now this div block will give it a height of around 80% and width of also around 70. Now in here what we are going to want to do is to add in a grid. Now we can do that by searching it, and then we can get this. So we are going to want to delete one of the rows, and I will explain why we are actually using a grid instead of a div. Allows us to able to move things once we go down into the lower breakpoints. Now one thing to note in Webflow, which is also very important, is that the breakpoints work downwards. So if you are designing in the base breakpoint, which is outlined by the start, here you will essentially be changing everything here on and downward. If you change something in the mobile mode, it won't necessarily reflect it on the higher levels, right? So let's continue now. Over here in the grid, we can go ahead and start adding in our information or our components. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a div inside of this grid, and within that div we can actually start adding in our components. So I can go ahead and start adding a heading, I can add a paragraph, I can add a button, and we almost already have a working here. But let's go ahead and give it some context. I'm gonna add some fake text here and some fake styles, so bear with me. Okay, so now that we have got this right, we can go ahead and start styling it. So I'm gonna change the size here to be around 60 pixels and change the height to be 1, and then a hyphen. This paragraph we are going to change it to 20. You can see that it automatically gives it a class once we add a custom size or custom color. Then we are going to want to change the size of button as well to be around 250 pixels by 60. Then it will do the exact same thing with the flex box. We will align it vertically and centered, and then change the size as well to be 20 pixels. Then we have got the spacing. Now spacings work in the way there is a margin, and then there's padding. One really easy way to explain margin padding is that margin pushes elements on top, and padding essentially pushes the elements inside inward. So if I go into X-ray mode for a second, you will be able to see these hash lines over here. So if I go ahead and add some more padding here, so now those green lines have increased all the way up, and it has really essentially pushed the sign up to the text, sign up text to be very constrained. So we will go ahead and reduce that all the way down to the 0, and then we will give it some padding of around 40 pixel. Now the top here we are going to add some padding as well by around like 20, and then we can see that this is already looking pretty good. But I want to styling it a little bit more. So what we are going to do here is going into the body and go ahead and give it a gradient. We can do that by going into the background, clicking image and gradient, and clicking the plus. Now there is a couple different methods to do this. There is the image gradient, which you just drop in an image. There is a line, a radial, then an overlay. For this we are just going to use linear. I'm going to paste it in a few colors that I already have. So now that we have got these colors, we can go ahead and change the angle to be maybe something around this. I'm just eyeballing here, and then we can change the dimensions as well. So now that we have got that, we can go ahead into the heading and change that color as well. So we can make this white, we can also change this to be white, and then we can change the button to be white as well. But then that changes the color of the text, so we have to go ahead and change that as well. We can use something like black, or we can actually use this color dropper here. And now this is looking pretty good, but there is something quite wrong with it, right? There is no image here on the right side. So let's go ahead and do that. In this section here, we can just go ahead and click in the grid and go ahead and add in an image. So this image we can go ahead and change it to one that I have already downloaded, already added, and we can see what that would look like. So that by default looks pretty good. One thing to note there is that if an element shares a class with another element, and you can change a color or a text size or whatever it is, then it will do for all the elements that share that class size, just like you did here. So let's go ahead and add in our brand image, and that will be just be my logo for now. We can resize this using the slider. I have gone ahead and made this super basic, super simple hero. Now it's not the prettiest, it's not the best one, but it's definitely a working hero. We will be able to see exactly what I mean with it when I said that using grid instead of div was easier to scale down. So we good to go ahead and click into grid. We go into the settings here. We can go ahead and change the columns to be only one column, and then rows to be two also just b2. So that's how easy. To the desktop, into the preview mode, we will be able to see that this is a real hero. It's got a real working button. These are real buttons, and if we open this drop down, we can see that we have also got the button there. So what have we learned in this video? We have learned how the UI works, how the designer works. We have learned how the style, the background. We learned how the style image is texts. We have learned how to scale things, how to bring them down, and how to add image, how to change the text, how to add classes. Now this alone should get you working quite quickly. At the end, I would like to request you to make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as it helps out our videos a lot. And again, thank you so much for watching.